Oh, happy Friday morning. It's been a heck of a week. Usually I'm the guy that's jumping out front and yelling at people and stirring things up, but my good, level headed friend and compadre, Brian Smith, actually got rubbed the wrong way this week. And hey, we're going to banter about that a little bit. We're going to ask for some support. We're going to also offer some advice on, since we're talking about leadership and things that were happening in the leadership, we're going to say, hey, have you checked yourself? Have you made sure that you're not just doing things right, but are you doing the right things in your gym for your athletes and positioning them for the most success that you can? And Brian, I think that at the bottom of all of the controversies of USA Gymnastics and everybody else, that's really the heart of the matter is, moving forward, are we doing things right for the athletes and the business owners and the sport in general? Or are we just doing things that we seem to be checking boxes and say, okay, I's dotted, T's crossed, move on. I's dotted, T's crossed, move on. And I think leadership requires a little bit more effort and energy than that. So, this week, we had a little rule change things. And of course, my dogs want to go crazy about someone outside with their dog. That's always fun. But we had a rule change in the middle of the quad. No one found out about it. And, you're a little upset, and for good reason.
Well, yeah, Brian, with everything that's going on at USAG and all the stuff that we're changing because of, safe sport and making sure that we're covered and following all the right rules and procedures and trying to grow a business in a time where there's no good media. You know what I mean? Well, Allie Raceman fell down a flight of stairs and broke her elbow yesterday, from what I understand. Sorry to hear that,
Dude,
Allie.
what?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
fell
I
down a
didn't hear
flight of
about
stairs and
that.
broke her elbow. I saw that on the news.
Wow.
That's the good media we're getting now, guys. We're getting that people are falling down that were former gymnasts and hurting themselves. Um, but no, I've had a lot of discussions with board members now about an age group change that I just found out in January, and I think that most people found out in January. And when it comes down to it, I thought I was doing what's right for my athletes, and putting them at level 8 13-year-old division because they were level 7 last year. They can do all the skill requirements. They have a good set of teammates under them that can help actually push them a little bit. And then I find out via email that there's no 13-year-old age division going to be honored at our regional championships. Um, so I kind of lost my cool a little bit, because I think it's crazy that I have a meet next weekend. I've already competed as an athlete at level 8, and now he's having to just kind of like get pushed out of what is viewed as the logical transition from level 7 to 8 to 9 to 10. Now he's got to go from level 7 into the JD division, where there's pommels on the pommel. When level 8, there's no pommels. So that was a little bit frustrating. I kind of vented a little bit online. I've emailed every single coach in the region and asked them to kind of send a nice letter to the regional board saying, hey, I don't like this. And, we actually have talked to a couple of coaches that think that is a good move. And I've also talked to a lot of coaches that think that this is a terrible move. But in the end, I don't hate the leadership. I just think that the leadership made a poor decision, and I think that they could have communicated this more effectively.
Well, and it comes back to like I said in the opening, hey, we got to check ourselves sometime, and maybe the leadership needs to take a pause and reflect a little bit and say, hey, was this the best decision for the athletes moving forward to do this in the middle of the quad? And when we're making dramatic changes, so this will be the first year that the regional championships will be split, and we've added the compulsory kits to the mix. So we have already a number of changes going on, and it's easy to overlook, not sending an email out or not putting a Facebook post up or any of that stuff when you have a lot of change going on and you're trying to get information out about a number of things at a time. But at the same time, maybe we need to take pause and say, hey, maybe this isn't a good change right now, and let's let the changes that have already been put in place for the regional championships that are going to be split level 8 through 10 and then level 7 4 through 7, let's let that happen and play out, and let's see how that works, and let's see how the athletes do, and then let's go from there. Maybe that would be a better idea. And I think a lot of coaches might agree with that, even the ones that it's not a big deal, to have them go to the JD program. Although the JD program, just by the name, sounds like you're getting demoted, like you're getting kicked out the club, because it's no longer level A, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's now your junior development. What does that mean?
Bryan, I actually really like the JD program. I think the junior development program is a really good program. I've had kids in it since the first year they offered it. I had a kid come to me as a senior in high school, says, "Hey, I really want to do gymnastics." Couldn't do a round off, and we competed JD, went all the way up as high as he could, and he had fun, and he did gymnastics for a year and loved it. I don't hate the JD. I have JDs this year.
So do we, and I love the program as well. Just that, like I'm saying, the perception, though, as we've talked to a few other
perception on it.
Yeah, we've talked to a few other coaches since this has been going on, and the perception, the feel to the athlete is that, okay, you're not good enough to stay in the regular, like you said, logical track. You're going to have to step over here into this, perceivably special group, which is not really a special group. It's just a different path, different set of rules. And maybe that'll be looked at in the next quad. Maybe, everyone will look at that and give it a new name, something cooler than, junior
rebranding time.
Yeah. And then, of course, get the coaches on board to really understand that program, because I think there's a lot of misperceptions with that program of thinking that it's a lesser program when it's really not. And for many athletes, it's a good place to go because they can excel, they can develop, and hey, they may come out of the junior development and go back into like level 10 and be able to compete and have fun and all that. Or they may stay in that junior development track the rest of their career and have a great competitive career. But the perception is where we're talking about now. And the fact that it's, January, we're on January 11th, and we found out about this on January 10th. 9th or 10th, and it's a little late in the game to be changing paths and getting the kids motivated and inspired to go in and train hard if they're going to be at a different level.
Yeah, well, the gymnastics progression doesn't change. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. It doesn't matter whether you're starting 5 years late, 2 years late, on time, early. The progression of the sport really doesn't change. Now, we can speed up and slow down that progression, which is what we tend to do with depending on the athlete's age. But planning for the season for me started, we've talked about this in the past on the show, in our planning one, which we can link in the show, is starting at the end of their season. So early June at the latest, I made decisions. Okay, this athlete needs to be prepping for level 8. This athlete needs to be prepping for level 9, and that really changed our focus. If he was an 8 last year and he's going 9, we really need to make sure we're pushing for release moves on high bar, upgrading those dismounts. If he's going to be a level 8 again, well, maybe it's not time to upgrade. Maybe we can just developmentally play around with the skill. We don't have to worry about pommels.
Right.
Okay. Right. And now it's like all that planning for the athlete or those athletes is just out the window.
Right.
It's just like, well, now all of a sudden our pommel horse workouts are going to be chaotic. We still are competing some meets, like we're going to the Ricky DC, which is a great meet, by the way. And he's going to
hook 0 in there.
Yeah, he's going to compete in level 8 and probably have a lot of competitors to compete against. Then we're going to go over to H&I. He's still going to be a level 8. Then we're going to go compete in Florida, and then I'm going to have to squeeze in a level 9's competition somewhere, or JD meet somewhere. And then he's going to have to go to state and regionals as a JD or at level 9.
Right.
So the planning is important. We have to be able to look ahead.
That planning is important. And, you and I touched on something, off of the show, but something that's relevant to the conversation and the planning piece is, you and I, maybe we're different, maybe we're the same as some other coaches, but you and I are both on the same page that we try to have when we're working with the athletes or I'm working with the business or whatever I'm working with coaching wise, try to have a 5-year plan, kind of have a look forward 5 years and then kind of break it down into, some some goals at the 1 year, and certain benchmarks in there. And it's really hard for us as coaches or professionals in any manner to not be informed of discussions about changes and things that might be occurring, because those changes affect our athletes. And like you said, you don't get riled up. I mean, you don't get hardly riled up over anything. You got opinions, you got great things to say all the time, but you don't get riled up and fired up unless it really starts affecting your athletes and the progressions and the development of your athletes in the sport, and or your program there at the gym. And now we have some stuff that, hey, we could do this, we could do that, we could go this way, we could go that way. Maybe we'll do junior fig, maybe we won't, maybe we'll. Okay, it's like, let's open the conversation up. We have these great social media tools, easy to get people's opinions. Not everybody has to agree. That's the great thing about it, is we shouldn't all agree. We should have opinions, and we should be able to discuss. And I think some people lose that as they get higher up in the sport, and they kind of think, well, these people will get there if they get athletes here, or if they get their business here, or if they do this and they get here. And I think it's up to us, and you and I are doing a pretty good job of getting some information out to folks about how to do planning, how to put it on the spreadsheet, how to periodize the planning out, how to, and it works. The planning works, for the athletes. It also works for your coaching staff. It also works for your business. And it all can be congruent, but kind of having information and being part of a discussion is a good thing. And I think that's where we need to go in the future for, not just for, especially for Region 3, because that's where we're at and we want to stay on top of the game. But nationally, I think we need to do more of that and have more people in the mix and get a few more opinions and ideas. Maybe there's something that we're overlooking. Not that everything will work, but opinion, anyone can state an opinion. We can take it or leave it. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier to you this morning that USAG has got a long tradition of building a program and then being unable to sell it to the coaches. And anytime a set of coaches or the coaches don't get behind something, it never comes into fruition. So like with the JD program, if the coaches don't agree that this is a good program, they're not going to put their athletes in. If they don't put their athletes in, it's not going to be a successful program. The women's program did a really good job of selling the Excel program. It's booming, right?
Yeah, so it's extremely successful.
It's extremely successful. That's something that's like the next step I think that USAG needs to work on. They have to be able to sell their programs. And I think they're unable to sell them because whenever they release a program, it's such a shock to everyone's system. You know what I mean? It's, why are you doing this? There's no lead up. Like you go to nationals, you sit down in this meeting and they start talking about this program and you start reading through it. And then all of a sudden you have all these questions about why. And sometimes those questions are needed, the why question. But I think the why question needs to happen at its inception. It doesn't need to happen upon its release.
Right. And there's very few people that are, quote unquote, in the know and part of those discussions as those programs are developed. Mm-hmm. And I think if there was more folks that, and for more demographics, more folks from more demographics, not just from people at the top, but people in the middle, people at the bottom, people that maybe are just starting programs out, and look at it holistically, because the program affects everybody. And like you said, in order to sell it, the coaches have to be willing to put athletes into those levels or those programs and make it viable. And like the Excel program, it was a great rollout. It was a great sale, and people have migrated over there left and right because they didn't want to take the traditional, path, the JO path. And it became a very solid, very viable program where it's pushing the JO program in the girls' side, where which one's got more athletes in it. And I think we could do that on the men's side if we could just get a few more people on board with some of the ideas and concepts that they because they're good ideas. They need a little bit of push.
All right, Bryan. So I made a list because I make a lot of lists. That's what I do. So it's entitled 3 areas that we need as a club with USAG leadership. All right. Support for growth, which includes the following. I'm going to have to read from my list. I'm sorry. Standardized education for coaches. I think that's a huge deal. We're talking from moment the employee walks in the building. I think there needs to be some standardized education going on. Promotional
Yep.
materials for social media and inside the gym, which do not exclusively say USAG. A banner that says USA Gymnastics has no purpose inside of my gym, especially considering now that it might be a liability to have USAG popping up on my facility.
You think that might be a detraction, huh?
Maybe some
Not a good
educational,
sales piece of material, right?
yeah, maybe some educational stuff that I can throw my logo on. Maybe that would be nice. As well as entrepreneurial training for owners and managers. I think that's important. They do have that on their USAG courses and stuff, but I think that we need a little bit more, and I think they need to be pushed. And I think more live courses in that area and states would be great. Number two, competition programs that encourage long-term participation for athletes. They have to be logical, and they have to be executed in that way, and they have to be something that even the parents can understand. Because if the parents don't understand it, they already don't understand the sport, then they can't get behind it, and they don't want to really push their athletes through the whole time. Number three, this is a long one, I apologize. Representation at all levels inside of USAG. We need club owners, coaches, and parents, and athletes all need an equal voice inside of USAG. One thing that needs to be stated is I don't believe that there should be any weight behind these people having been elite athletes. The elite program already has its own representation and doesn't need any more. 99% of the athletes in this program will not be an elite gymnast. And I don't believe that we should exclusively have elite coaches in these positions. I think that's a big deal. I think it's kind of insane to actually have to have an elite athlete at these levels. I think that we need grassroots representation, and I think we need young clubs, old clubs, people who have multiple facilities all on these boards. And I think that these people have more of an insight into what we need as a club owner than the elite coaches do. The elite coaches do a phenomenal job. They have a wealth of knowledge, but their wealth of knowledge is at developing athletes at a very, very high level, and which is a very, very narrow section of the field.
Well, and Bryan, I talked about that at Congress this past year. Putting people on the right seat on the bus, and just because you're good coaches doesn't mean you're a good business administrator. And just because you're a great business administrator and you're good at growing the business in the gym doesn't mean you're a great coach, or you can even be a good coach. I think we need to. I totally am with you on that. I think we really need to look at those positions within the community and say, hey, who's the right person to put in for that job? Not because they just excelled at coaching and bringing up athletes, but also what have they done for the industry in some instances, business-wise, that would lend to help the whole community. And I think that's a big problem throughout our entire industry.
Those coaches and athletes that are those elite levels, they know what it's like to develop the gymnastics side of the sport. They know that. They're really, really good at that. But they're doing it at such a level and with such athletes that are amazing. They're dealing with the 1%. And we need people that are worried about the other 99%. The 99% of the gymnasts out there are not going to make it to level 10.
Correct.
They're not going to make it to the international playing scene. You know what I mean? That's such a narrow scope, and we need people that are more dealing with the broad scope. And you know what? If that means that there's two separate tracks, and that's fine. But we just need something that's a little bit more, I don't know, less difficult for everyone to wrap their head around, and a little bit more
more clear and well defined.
Yeah, more clear and well defined. So,
was that the end of the list? I know you make lists that are like really cool. So that you only got 3 things today?
I tried to not do 17 things. Okay. I'm really good at doing 17 things.
I know. And like I said to everybody, you're usually the guy that sits in the back and doesn't rile things up. But this was a great topic today. And, we've talked about it many times on the show, and we really can't express to you guys enough. Parents, coaches, gym owners, athletes, get over to the right profile and find out who you are. Find out how you work, how you learn best, what motivates you easiest, what makes you get up and get going, and then learn about your coach, learn about your parents, learn about the other teammates, and see if you can help everyone improve together by just having a little bit of clarity and more understanding about who everyone is, personality wise, so that it lends to a better environment and a more fun experience as we all go through trying to do our best in the sport, but also trying to be great human beings and leaders in various areas. So get over the right profile, take the quiz, get in the mental gym, some great exercises to help you progress forward. Can't express enough how important that is. So Bryan, it's been a great show. I'll let you wrap it up. And we'll tell everybody have a happy Friday.
Yeah, have a great Friday. I hope you guys have a good week. I hope you guys come out to the Ricky DC. The FIG session is going to be phenomenal. Just saying that.
Will.
We'll be there. We'll be
are we
going
to, I don't know if you have athletes competing Friday morning, but are we going to try to go live at Ricky on Friday?
We'll be live.
All right. So, hey, guys, check us out at Ricky DC. Until then, we're out.